community and to do your business. And so we pray for the mayor, the vice mayor, the commissioners, Lord, to just give them just great wisdom, and those that are be presenting today, this evening, to just give them peace and to be able to articulate what is best and what they want to do for this city. And as I was asked to pray for these young ladies that won the state championship for cross country, God, not only make them able to run fast and long, but give them sure and steady hands to hold this trophy, that they would not drop it tonight. And as well, Lord, we're just thankful for this community. What a great place to live in beautiful East Tennessee and this wonderful city called Johnson City. It is a privilege, and we thank you for the opportunity to live here and to serve here. And we ask, Lord, that you would bless our city. We think as I was driving here, Lord, and as I passed our first responders as they were responding to an accident, police officers, our EMS folks, God, we're thankful for them. And these men and women that are out serving our community and even putting themselves in harm's way. So we're thankful for that, as well as we celebrate and recognize this Monday our veterans, those who have served this great nation. And we want to remember them and thank them for their sacrifice and willing to serve the greatest country in the world. And so bless the proceedings, the meeting tonight. We pray it all in the precious name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Please face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let me welcome everyone to the chambers tonight, and if you're watching live stream or on TV, we have a good turnout tonight, and it's great to see people involved in their government. Just a couple announcements, Mr. Peterson, before we get into the agenda. As our pastor said in his prayer, we are having a Veterans Day parade this coming Saturday. It will leave at 11 a.m. from the parking lot across from McDonald's by ETSU and come down Walnut Street through downtown and then out to Legion Street. So come out and honor your veterans. I think there are 40-some floats in it. People will be walking and having scout troops, and so come out and support not only your veterans but your young people who will be participating in the flag and in the parade. I think you'll see lots of. I think our police department our fire department will have a really big flag down there, so we'll look forward to that. So please come out to the Veterans Day parade, and then of course Monday is Veterans Day, and I think there's several ceremonies at our different Veterans Day parks. One other thing, commissioners, I know y'all all know about this, but and Mr. Peterson, I really want to just bring some recognition to our staff this past week. I know they work incredible hours just in their regular jobs, but last Thursday night was Halloween. Y'all remember that? And it was pouring the rain. And so we had some staff come together and basically say, we can't let the Grinch steal Halloween. And so everybody got together with the Chamber of Commerce, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, JCDA, all of our kind of arms in our community came together. We had businesses come together. We had different city departments come together and set up in Memorial Park Community Center. We didn't know if anybody was going to come, didn't know how much candy we needed to get, but we have a crowd estimate that it was more than 100 and a little bit less than 5,000. So it went on from 4 until 7 o'clock. We had to finally close the doors, and we just took the candy out into the people lined up still, the probably 500 or 600 or 700 who were still outside. So I want to thank the staff, Mr. Peterson, for everybody's hard work. And there was a little bit of candy left over, and I've noticed in people's offices around the city hall that, but all the chocolate's gone. So anyway. So thank you again. So tonight we've got a busy agenda, so let's see. I do have one other thing before we go. While people are here, we usually leave a lot of comments and everything at the end and everybody's gone. But this week also, on Monday, the Johnson City Press released its publication of Johnson City 150 Years. And as you know, we've been celebrating our sesquicentennial all year, and it's kind of winding down, coming to a close. We'll hear a little bit more about it in another item on the agenda. But this book is amazing, and it's a pictorial and history of Johnson City. And I think they sell them over at the press. You can go in or you can order them online, but it's really worthwhile to have. I think it probably makes a pretty good Christmas decoration. So that's my advertisement for the press right here. But we want to thank them for researching and putting this together. And I know if we all buy these right now, we can go in and we can find pictures of people we know. 50 years from now, when the time capsule's opened up in 2069, there won't be as many people around to know some of these people. So pick up your copy. So thank you, Johnson City Press. Mr. Peterson.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor, one other thing I'd like to point out. We have a lot of people here for a variety of issues tonight, but just as a matter of clarification, when we get the ordinances heard on first reading will be heard without public comment. All of the public comment for our ordinances takes place on second reading. So I didn't want anybody sitting here through what could be a lengthy meeting thinking that we're going to get the opportunity to speak on an item that wasn't up for second reading and public hearing. So if your item is not scheduled for second reading tonight, but you want to speak at the next meeting, if considering it passes, we'll have public hearing and there'll be ample time for everybody to say what it is that they want to comment on.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Your first order of business is consideration of your minutes from the meeting held on October 17th.
Move for approval?
All right.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any other comments? Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
At this time, if we could have the young ladies representing the Liberty Bell Patriot Cross Country Team to please come forward for some recognition,
I
please.
feel like I need to run down here.
We'll get Coach McDonald over here.
Well, good evening. Thank y'all for coming over. I am so proud, everybody, of this group. Before we even start, I want you to give them a hand. These young ladies represent not only our school system, but our city so well, and we're really proud of you, of what you're doing out there. And so as I do your proclamation and talk just a little bit, we want you to stay with it, and then you're at Liberty Bell, but you'll be at Science Hill very soon, and I'm sure they're waiting on you. This is Coach Nancy McDonald, Coach Mack, I think you're called. And I know, and Coach Nutter also is a part of the...
Ron Edwards was the...
Okay. But I know y'all have to be a great team because you have a great coach. So would y'all say that? Very good, okay. Well, I'm very honored to read a proclamation to honor you tonight. And whereas, well, that's not it, that's small business.
That's not the one you need. Let's try the other one.
I saw, they're starting their own businesses this early. Thank you. Whereas, led by Coach Nancy McDonald and assistant coach Ryan Edwards, the 2019 Liberty Bell Lady Patriots Cross Country Team achieved an incredible level of success during the 2019 season, finishing the TMSAA State Championship and an overall season record of 120-6. And whereas tremendous sportsmanship, integrity, and character were demonstrated by Hannah Dawson. Raise your hand as I call your name here. Just kind of do this. Hannah Dawson, Lexi Green, okay, Morgan Mahoney, Micah Lane, Ansley Reed, Emma Ray, and Arwen Teal, and alternates Hannah Eisenzoff, Elena Inglesia, and Sophia Young. Have we left anybody off? Okay, thank you. And whereas the team's accomplishment also include fourth place in the Victor Ashe Classic, Middle Six Conference, Fender's Farm and Warriors Invitational team runner-up, and Run for the Hills, Terry Hull Crawford Classic, and Panther Creek Team Championship, and TMSAA Upper East Tennessee Sectional Team Champions. Now therefore, I, Jenny L. Brock, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, do hereby congratulate the 2019 Liberty Bell Lady Patriots Cross Country Team and a remarkable season during which they successfully and admirably represented our area on the state stage. We are proud of each of you. So Coach Mack, you want to say a couple of words?
First, thank you so much, guys, for letting us be here. I know you have a busy night ahead of you. I want to first thank Johnson City Schools. I saw Dr. Barnett here. I'm not just saying this because you're here. They treat us remarkably well. We don't take for granted the ability to compete and represent our school and our city. And so first, I thank the school system and Dr. Morgan, the principal at Liberty Bell, for allowing us to do this. Interesting trivia about this team. They are three-peat state champions. 2017, 2018, 2019. And I think it speaks of this team's character and the team's prior. We have two girls that have competed all 3 years on the state level. And so I'd like to, chokes me up, I guess, Hannah Dawson and Morgan Mahoney, if you would just step out so they can see you. These girls have been state champions for 3 years, which no other girl in the large schools division can say that. No one else in TMSAA, Tennessee, can say that they've been on a state championship 3 years team. So congratulations to you ladies. No other school in the state can say that they were back-to-back-to-back state champions. And so again, I think that says something, but and I know I just need to share this. It's just to characterize this team. Last year I said it was the love for each other. This year I can only describe them as overcomers. 3 of the girls that were on the state championship team last year were able to compete this year. Injuries and illness interfered with them, or they moved on to high school. So you see girls that have never performed on the state level until this meet. And the fact that they have continually, in 95-degree heat, gone to the track without complaining, to my face. And it's not just these girls. When they went to that meet in Clarksville, we have 41 girls on our team. That means since the first week of August until October, they didn't quit. They continued to work in the heat and in the humidity and just kept coming back. And in a time when we hear complaints about the youth and laziness and this or that, that's not my experience at all. I mean, this is a gut check crew. And I'm truly so amazed by you. When I looked at the top 5 times for us and the second place team, statistically, again, we should not have won. But when you look at the combined total times, the difference between first and second place was a half a second. And that's because a huge majority of these girls got personal records by over a minute on a 2-mile course, and they were running fantastic times going into the meet. And so you are just you're my cross-country crazy overcomers. And I think that mental toughness and that just tenacity, this is some world changers right here. And they represented your city very, very well, and just proud of them.
I want to present the proclamation to you, so I'm just going to come right in the middle, and everybody can come out and take it if you want. Very good. Thank you all so much. Is there anybody who wants to just burning to say something tonight? Yeah? One? At least one? Anybody want to say anything? Go, Brian.
Thank you, Coach Mack, for saying all that great things about our team. And even though not everybody got to go to state, everybody worked equally as hard to get there. And crap, I forgot what I was going to say. And just thanks for coaching us. And even though this was your first year and you just jumped right in, well, second year, but And also, I've been on this team since I was in 6th grade. I'm in 8th grade now, and this is my first year ever being able to compete on the state team. So,
So Science Hill next year?
we don't know that yet. I'm wrestling, so we don't.
Okay. You're on the wrestling team too?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Well, thank y'all so much. Thank you. Congratulations, girls.
Thank you.
You're not going to stay for the rest of the meeting?
Homework?
Yeah.
Good excuse.
That's good.
About 5 pages.
Mayor, your next order of business is a proclamation recognizing and supporting Small Business Saturday.
All right. Do we have someone here? There we go.
Mr. Cantler?
Mr. Cantler. And Mrs. Cantler, come on up. Well, it's great to have Bob Cantler, who's the president of the Chamber of Commerce, and Diana Cantler, who is the director of the Johnson City Development Authority. So thank y'all for coming. I will read this now that I was getting ready to read to the track girls. Whereas local small business contribute to our local economy and community, according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are currently 30.2 million small businesses in the United States. They represent 99.7% of all businesses with employees in the U.S. and are responsible for 65.9% of the net new jobs created from 2000 to 2017. And whereas small businesses employ 47.5% of the employees in the private sector in the U.S., and whereas 90% of consumers in the United States say Small Business Saturday has had a positive impact on their community. And whereas 89% of consumers who are aware of Small Business Saturday said the day encourages them to shop small all year long. And whereas 73% of consumers who reportedly shop small at independently owned retailers and restaurants on Small Business Saturday did so with friends and family. And whereas most reported the reason for consumers aware of the day to shop and dine at small independently owned businesses was to support their community. And whereas Johnson City is dedicated to promoting small business in our community and will observe Small Business Saturday on Saturday, November 30th. Now therefore I, Jenny L. Bragg, Mayor of the City of Johnson City, ask all citizens to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. There were a lot of statistics in there. So anyway, Ms. Candler, do you want to say a few words about Small Business Saturday?
So representing downtown Johnson City, the majority of our businesses are owned by your neighbors. They're the people that live down the street, the people that you pass in the grocery store, and they support our schools, they support our organizations, and they offer personal service to you as their customer when you walk in the door. So we really encourage you to come downtown on Saturday, November 30th. There's going to be a lot of great things happening on that particular day, but also for the 2 weeks past that, on Thursday, December 12th, we have a special evening that we're going to offer for shoppers, but we encourage you shop local all year round, but especially during the holiday season.
Well, I approach this from a different perspective, in the sense of when you buy local and you spend $100, from a local person, $68 of that stays in our community. When you're buying from a national chain or even worse, online, a lot of that money doesn't stay here. So for us to support our fire department, and those are the things that we need to do to make our community stronger and have more quality of life in this area, when you're shopping local, you're doing things to help us to grow our economy. 70% of my 750 businesses in my organization are small businesses. So most of our businesses at the Chamber of Commerce are small, and they need the support of their neighbors and their friends, and they're on your school boards, and they're on your in your church, and to be viable, they need us to support them. So thank you for what you do in shopping local, and thank you, Mayor, for letting us be here.
Thank you so much. We will be down there. Okay, thank you.
The next order of business is consideration of a beer license application from Doya LLC located at 109 Buffalo Street. This is for a Class 1 on-premise beer license. The appropriate reviews have been made, finding no disqualifying factors, and the recommendation is for approval.
All right. Would the applicant come forward, please, and state your name and address?
Glenn Tiaman, and the address is 109 Buffalo Street
Okay.
in downtown Johnson City.
Have you read the rules and regulations about the sale of alcohol in
Yes.
Johnson City? And do you agree to abide by them?
Yes.
Commissioners, y'all have any questions of the applicant?
Move for approval.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
3 seconds on that one. Okay. Any other comments? All right, Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. You want to tell a little bit about your small business, which
Yes.
is good.
I'm in downtown. It's a family-owned business. Me and my wife operating it. It's a Mediterranean taste. We bring in Johnson City downtown. Me and my wife, we're from Turkey, and most foods are Turkish home cookings and Greek and those areas, Mediterranean. So I used to own the restaurant over there, West Walnut Street. It's called Mediterranean Garden. I changed it to Red Mesa Burlington. Now I closed that one. We just operate in one restaurant. Is hard.
Enough.
Yeah. So we just focus on one. Now we open 7 days a week. Long hours, and in downtown. A lot of people come for the beer and wine. So my next step after this beer license, maybe apply for a wine only. So when they eating, they might want to try. Maybe I'll try to get a Turkish beer if I can.
Right.
So like German restaurant, Freisberg, they sell some German beer. So some different taste if I can. If I don't, there are a lot of beer joints in the other places. I just want to sell a couple of, different options.
Well, I've eaten in your restaurants
Oh, thank you.
several times, and it's excellent. So
Thank you. I
highly
appreciate it.
recommend it. So, any other comments, commissioners? Okay, thank you very much.
I've got one.
Oh.
What's the appropriate way to say the name of the restaurant?
Red meze.
Meze?
Meze
Okay.
means appetizer in Turkish.
Okay,
So, yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for.
I'm gonna quiz you after the meeting to see if you remember.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is it hero? Is it gyro?
Oh,
Is
yeah,
it?
here we go.
Okay, that's a
Okay.
very good question. That word is a Greek word, so I'm
Okay.
from Turkey, so I don't know, but I call it East Tennessean accent, like gyro. But whatever you call it, I'll bring it to you.
You'll serve it, okay.
But you leave his question unresolved.
Yes.
It's been nagging him for years.
Maybe we should ask a Greek person.
Let's go out to the Mad Greek and ask them.
Okay,
Yeah.
good, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next order of business is consideration of a street closure for the Sesquicentennial Black Tie Gala to be held on Saturday, November 30th. This will involve Main Street and part of the parking lot behind the former Massengills building. The appropriate reviews have been made, and we would recommend your approval.
Well, and I'm going to call our folks who have been planning this up in just a second, but just a couple of comments before we go into the details of this. We have been celebrating all year our sesquicentennial. We've learned so much about our city with a great deal of pride, and as I mentioned in the book that the press is putting out, that we've learned. We've been trying to educate our young people about the history of our city, and we will be leaving a legacy to future generations. Because when we came into it, we had to go back and research a lot, but we're leaving a legacy so that in 2069, which is 50 years, when they'll celebrate again the bicentennial, the 200th birthday. Do y'all want to share that too? No. Okay. That the generation at that time will know and be able to pick it right up. So this weekend, when we are closing the streets, it is really kind of the birthday party. It's lighting of the candles, because December 1st, back in 1869 was actually the day that the city was chartered, and so it's our official birthday. So there will be some celebrations that we've asked, some very fine volunteers who step forward to plan for the city. And so we want to, they'll tell you about how you can come down and enjoy it. There are a lot of different things going on that night, and then the next day, we will be burying the time capsule over at King Commons. And again, in 2069, they will be opening up that time capsule. So anyway, Kathy, you and Nora Jane want to come up? If you'll state your name and address, that'd be fine.
Okay. I'm Nora Jane Wexler, and it's 1924 Lone Oak Road, Johnson City.
I'm Kathy Calhoun. My address is 910 Morningside Drive.
Commissioners, y'all want to rule on the street closing first and then let them give some details, or do you want to let them give the details and?
I think it's best if we go ahead and act on it. Just
Let's do, and then that'll take the pressure off.
Take the mystery out of it.
Off.
Yeah.
Okay, is there a motion to close the street?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
All right, Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Calhoun,
Absolutely, yes.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes, so that takes the pressure off. Now y'all can feel at ease. Go ahead.
Well, we're just thrilled to have been asked to chair this event. We've been working on it for over a year. Like the pastor so eloquently put, we live in an absolutely wonderful place, and Kathy and I both love it. And we're thrilled to be here. So we have probably 30 or 40 people helping us, doing 3 different committees and working on 3 different events for that night. And Johnson City is a very giving place. We have many, many businesses that have donated and community leaders that have donated towards this event. And we're just hoping that it'll be a huge success because we're thrilled to be celebrating 150 years of Johnson City. Glad to have lived here my whole life. And my mother worked on the Centennial, so I was thrilled to get to work on this, to continue the thing. And hopefully my daughter will be there that night, and hopefully she can work on the 150th.
Wasn't your dad involved in burying the time capsule?
No, my husband's uncle was president of the Chamber of Commerce at the time, and his whole family's coming because they were there at the burial of the time capsule for the other one.
Is that the one we lost and had?
Yes, and they called her to help her
Okay.
find it. Where did your dad bury it? Because she was, I think, 13 at the time, and she had helped. So, yeah. all that.
So the young people here, please make mental note.
Yeah, I was thinking that when you were saying where it was, I was thinking, I hope they are writing that down.
I want to continue. This event that is coming to a culmination on the 30th of this month has been a year-long event. We have looked back over Johnson City's past, and we're at this point we're at a crescendo. We want to celebrate. We want to celebrate us and look to our future for our children and our grandchildren. The event that Nora Jane and I have been asked to work on is the birthday party. And Nora Jane and I, as some of you who know us, we know how to plan birthday parties. And so we have really planned a wonderful birthday party. It's open to the public. You can still buy tickets. They're going fast, though. I want to encourage you not to delay. And you can get tickets here at City Hall. Write a check. If you want to go on the Facebook page for the Sesquicentennial, or if you want to go on Eventbrite, the website, you can buy tickets all 3 places. We have the dinner tickets, and we also have a late party planned. So if you would like to come just for, if you've got an earlier evening, this is a busy holiday weekend. If you'd like to come just for the after party, because at midnight is the night that is the time when we're actually going to have a countdown. We have a very special surprise planned for midnight that we're not saying what it is, so you'll just have to come out and find out. I also want you to know that we have designated parking, thanks to the approval of this item on our agenda, and shuttle service. So if you need to park, we have parking lots designated around Johnson City at Muncie, also the downtown parking lot. So all you have to do is get out of your car, and if you're wearing stilettos like me, that shuttle bus might be come in,
around to get
come in handy. So we thank you for your support, and we just hope everyone will come out and join us on November 30th for the Sesquicentennial Black Tie Gala.
And Commissioners, anybody have some words to say? We will all be there, kind of hosting the
Yes,
party.
you're the
All right,
host.
We'll be
Absolutely.
here.
Does everybody have their tickets?
I have mine.
I have
Yeah,
mine.
I bought mine, yes.
Oh, yeah, I checked.
We all
Yeah, we already know all y'all are on there.
We know you're on the,
making
no, we
sure.
would be talking.
I turned into a pumpkin though at midnight, so we're gonna have to wrap it up.
Well,
There
well,
goes the surprise.
yeah, that's a surprise, what we're doing for you at midnight.
So y'all have to come because I will actually wear a dress that night. Okay, guys. Well, thank y'all so much, and thanks for all your hard work, and for the whole Sesquicentennial Commission who's been working all year. We've learned a lot about ourselves, and as we pass this on to future generations and dedicate the History Circle over in King Commons, it's going to be a very special time to always have a place where people can come back and get centered to understand the history of Johnson City and who we are. Thank y'all.
Thank y'all.
Your next order of business is consideration of the consent agenda.
Commissioners, would you like to pull any items? We'll start Commissioner Calhoun.
D7, just for information about the computer purchase.
D7. Commissioner Hunter.
No.
Commissioner Fowler.
D1, please.
Vice Mayor.
I think D's, D2 through, I guess it's 4, is what we're doing by way of schools, architectural engagement for the
Okay.
schools.
2 through 4. Okay, and the one I was going to pull has been pulled, so we're good. All right, so Commissioner Calhoun, we'll start with you on D7.
Sure. And maybe Mr. Peterson or whomever can address this, but just to highlight for the general public on how the city reacted in the emergency to be able to replace computers, and also a chance just to thank the staff for how they turned this around and all the work that was done to replace all the computers. I think that we're as safe as you can possibly be, and I think this purchase was something that was eventually going to have to be purchased anyway. But any comments from you, Mr. Peterson, about the staff and their work?
You may want to kind of do a prequel here. Some of the people may not understand what this is about. The city was hacked, right? Attempted hacked, yeah.
Well, it was hacked.
So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay. As everyone's probably aware, we did experience what I'm going to call a cyber attack 3 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, which was an attempt to sequester or capture our data and hold us ransom. And due to some very good work by our IT staff and the foresight of the commission to fund some additional equipment that we funded in this year's budget, we were able to safely protect our data, your data, and no one was able to get a hold of any of our data and do anything with it. But as a part of the recovery process, we did have to revert to pencil and paper for a couple of days until we could evaluate what, if any, compromises of our system had taken place. Thankfully, there are none. We've had the FBI involved in this. We've got some forensic experts that are still working on some things to make sure that everything's proper. But what we did experience was that anybody that had left their computer on over the weekend was susceptible to have been attacked and still have something out there on that machine that, if it were reconnected to our network, could have caused us additional problems. So as a result of that, we took about 400 computers, laptops and desktops, offline. The ones that had been left off over that particular weekend were safe. They weren't reachable because the power was off of those. So we typically replace, in a round number, about $125,000 to $150,000 worth of computers every year just to keep our machines replaced. That is about somewhere between a third and a half of the number of computers that were impacted as a result of this cyber attack. So what we were able to do was to, through a lot of hard work, multiple 12, 15-hour days over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the IT staff has been able to re-image or restore about 100 and some computers, I think, that were fairly new computers bought in the last year or so. We've cleaned those up and got those safe. Those were put back online. The older machines, we went ahead and replaced those. So what you're doing this evening is authorizing the purchase of replacement computers. So the big takeaway from all of this is we did a really good job of protecting ourselves to this point. The takeaway is, I think, from a couple of different perspectives. One, from us organizationally, we have learned more about our process, procedures, and how people use our computer system internally and externally. I mean, you might imagine, let's use police department, for example. Well, every other law agency in the state of Tennessee, TBI, FBI, Sheriff's Department, ETSU, all the local jurisdictions that we interact with, there's a link there because we're exchanging information all the time. So we have learned that there are a lot of access points that we were aware of, and we've bolstered security there. We've also are in a pretty detailed discussion now about perhaps the need to hire a technology security position, someone that would come in and their sole focus would be nothing but protection of our data and to try to devise ways to see if they can get through our protection so that we can stay ahead of the bad guys. This is something that happens every day. It happens all over the world. We probably have gotten attacked many, many times in the past, and our security firewalls and stuff deflected it so it never even registered with us. And I guess the other takeaway from a personal basis is, everybody should stop and think how many interactions you have in an electronic format that has things like your driver's license, your social security number, your bank account number, all kinds of things. You really need to be careful with that and continually monitor your personal information because there are tens of thousands of people out there trying to steal it every day. And it's a continual effort to thwart the efforts of those who are trying to disrupt your personal business. So pay attention, be wary. I know one of my first thoughts was when I heard that this had happened, I had 2 questions for the IT folks. One, was I the dummy that opened up the wrong email that made this happen? And 2, do the water and sewer plants work? So that just kind of gives you some idea of how disruptive an attack like this could be. It's not only financial, but there are many utility systems and mission critical operations that are dependent on technology. So we just need to all be very aware. And as the mayor pointed out about the Halloween, saving Halloween, the IT folks saved the world as far as I'm concerned in our organization, and I am forever grateful to the hard work that those folks did. We planned well, we implemented well, and as in everything, there had to be a little bit of luck involved in there, but we're going to work hard to stay in front of these folks. It's very mission critical to us.
But luck favors the prepared.
It does. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Next item is D, 1.
Yep, I pulled this. It is it's additive to our water and sewer portion of the city. for our clean water. And I discussed it some on Monday night. And being the chemistry major that I was, I looked a bunch of stuff up.
Okay.
So the company that originally sold us this was Delta Chemical Company. And they named this Delpac 2500 and have a long history of us buying that from them. And they have a patent on that that's 25 years old. And I looked into it, and this is polyaluminum chloride. That's an additive. That's the coagulant that helps sediment out any impurities in our water, which we need and we want. We didn't send it out for bid because we've used the same company for that long. But I looked at some other things, and we were paying $393 a ton for ours, and the list price on the 700 other companies that make this are between $150 and $350 a ton. So my question is just, are we really looking into it? In 25 years, we could have had somebody come up with some pretty good additives that may be as good as what we're using or better than what we're using, and can we look at those and see if we can get a better price? If it's going to make our water taste the same, I'm glad. If it's not going to be as good, we'll use the same. I'm good with that.
Yes, sir. And I told you that we would dig into this. We've had some other unplanned things going on in water sewer this week, and we did not get an answer. I meant to ask you all to pull this from tonight's agenda. So
Okay.
if you would.
Not that we're doing anything wrong. I
No.
like our water. I like the way it tastes. I don't want it to change. But if we could save $100,000 on one chemical for the city, I think that's worth looking into.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we need to take some action to remove this from the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes, so D1 will exit the consent agenda. Okay, so the remainder is D2 through 4. Vice Mayor?
I think it would be helpful just to speak to what we're doing in those three items and specifically why. This relates to city school capital needs and planned investment there, and so I don't know if that's something for Dr. Barnett or if that's something for someone else on staff, just to Randy maybe. I see Randy standing, so he can come in.
Why don't Randy and I tag team this?
Okay.
That's good.
What this is the employment of 3 different architectural firms to do design work, to do elementary school additions at Lake Ridge, Southside, and Woodland Elementaries. The Johnson City school system continues to grow at 1% or a little better each year, so that's, in round numbers, that's somewhere between probably 70 and 120 students per year. That's pretty typical for us. We've had a conversation ongoing about the desire to go to 2 middle schools. And this is part of that, but I feel like it's really driven by is a capacity issue. Between Liberty Bell and Science Hill, we have a capacity for about 2,600 students total. And the class sizes that are there today are about that number of students. So the 2 Liberty Bell and Indian Trail, grades 5 through 8, are at capacity today. So the 2 middle school model is now looking at moving the 5th grade out of Indian Trail, which would, in round numbers, free up about 650 seats at that middle school level. But you've got to accommodate those 650 seats at the elementary school level. Again, using general numbers, in the elementary school level, you really need to plan on 1 teacher per 20 students. So we're looking at doing 4 classrooms at Southside, 8 at Lake Ridge, 4 for sure, perhaps 8 at Woodland. So let's say let's round that off and say, was it 16 classrooms? That's 320 seats. That really helps us address capacity issues rather quickly within the system. There are, not all of the elementary schools are at capacity. There is some room, additional room at the elementary school level for fifth grade. So what we're proposing to do is to get these three projects moving with funding from the PEP, or the People's Education Plan, which is funded by the quarter-cent sales tax that was approved by referendum in the early 90s. We've got the capacity to do this. That still will leave the need to expand or replace Town Acres. Town Acres, Dr. Barnett's 425, 450 student capacity.
That's right, it's full.
And Town Acres is full. It's an older school. We've got some various issues out there we need to deal with. So to do this phase of elementary school addition is going to take care of a half to 2/3 of what we really need to address long-term. And if our discussions with county continue on the track that they currently are, hopefully we will be receiving some funding from Washington County to help us towards doing the Town Acres rebuild expansion when it comes time to do that. And I guess I forgot to point out, the plan currently would be to take Town Acres from 450 to probably 700 capacity. That way, we've got some capacity at the elementary school level for growth. You've got seats at the junior high level for us old guys, and then at the high school level, so that as enrollment grows and we've got the capacity to accommodate future student growth.
Let me, before, you're going to probably talk about what this really is doing
I'm not
here.
sure
but
he is, though, because I mean, I
maybe
feel like it's already done, you know?
Yeah, he did a great job.
I want to see if Dr. Burnett would like to
Yes.
add anything to the capacity issue, but just a remark, Mr. Peterson, the money we're working on with the county, that's money that we all pay in our county property taxes,
It is.
different from the money that we're talking about to fund these immediate needs that we have that come from, as you said, the PEP
Sales
quarter-cent
tax.
sales tax.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're all paying for that. Thank you.
Thanks. To be good stewards of public money, one of the things we've had to do is revisit the whole concept of having a 500 or fewer community school. There's going to be some recurring costs, but overall, a big savings from not having to operate more schools at that size. When we go over 500, we add an assistant principal, and that's essentially the added cost to those schools. We have some room available at many of our schools. We're continuing to look at that, look at our numbers, but we've really gone from a cohort per grade level of about 525 to 550 to what I was looking at today, even our kindergarten, where we have traditionally added students in first grade who go to private kindergartens. We're at 645 today in kindergarten. That's the smallest we have all the way through third grade. Then it levels off a little bit down around 600 in fourth grade. So we've actually grown everywhere. It's not a growth occurring because of tuition, students coming into our elementary schools. And the school board already knows this is a recommendation it will make, that we're not going to have room for that at this time as we continue to grow.
If I could ask a follow-up. So you mentioned the middle school, Liberty Bell and Indian Trail. What is capacity like at Indian Trail right now?
Indian Trail really right now is overcrowded. I mean, we're at capacity, we make it work, and that's what we do. For instance, I mentioned Town Acres is, their music teacher's already in the little theater. That's one of those things we can do. It doesn't inconvenience students at all, it inconveniences the staff some.
But I mean, at
But
Indian
the
Trail,
middle
you're using
schools,
old locker
You're
rooms
looking
for
at old locker
instructional
rooms
space.
for testing, storage, offices. So that's the reason I say it's
Built for
already
like
overcrowded.
1,100?
It is, and I
Yeah.
talked to the architect last week, and he said it really is truly capacity at 1,100 students.
And how many do we have?
We're at 1,250. So at Liberty Bell, I saw a number looking at capacity that was done years ago, but it said something like 1,700. The actual capacity at Liberty Bell somewhere between 1,300 and 1,400 max. The reconfiguration will get us down below, hopefully below 900 at Indian Trail, give us room for some growth in our middle school. One of the things we're going to have to look at if we continue to grow in our elementaries is adding an elementary school somewhere 5 to 10 years. I mentioned that to the Washington County Commission as well, just to give them some understanding of that. We're just having natural growth. You know, everybody always, most school systems in the state are shrinking. We happen to be one that is growing, and that's considered to be a good problem, but it's still a problem. We have to.
And along the same lines, so we're at 1250
Yes, sir.
at Indian Trail, and that's with the current 5th and 6th grade.
That's correct.
What happens when our 1st and 2nd grade become 5th and 6th grade?
If we do nothing, right now, our current, actually 2nd and 3rd grade would be close to 1,400 students. So it'd be between 1,300 and
1,400 students in a building for 1,100.
For 5, 6.
Okay.
So that transition to 2 middles would go to 2 6/8, which would alleviate that space issue at those 2 schools. And at this point, it's not pushing that down to the elementary schools if we have the additions. Without the additions, of course, we're in a bind.
So this expansion that we're talking about here tonight will help bring the 5th grade out of the Indian Trail back to an
Back to the
elementary school.
elementary school.
Part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
the other schools already have capacity to bring the rest of those 5th grade back to other schools.
Except
That's
for
what-
Town
that's right.
Acres.
Except for Town Acres, that's the bottleneck.
Except for Town Acres, yeah.
Our bottleneck right now is Indian Trail. And, you know, just to give some perspective, it's the only school that I could find that has 8 feeder schools. And they do a remarkable job having students from 8 elementaries go into that school, and they do a lot of things like intramurals. The kids love the school. But it's just it'll allow us to have 3 schools feeding into Indian Trail, 5 schools feeding into Liberty Bell, 3 grades, get to know the students better, get to know their strengths and areas of need. Also, those cohorts being smaller, it's a lot better concept for our staff being able to understand and know students from a mental health issue, from a mental health piece too. You're talking about 3 schools. Carol McGill at Fairmont always likes to say, we do this, your child has a 1 in 3 chance of being in class with somebody they knew in elementary school. Right now, it's 1 in 8. So, a lot of reasons to do it.
Do you have anything to add to it, Mr. Trivett?
They covered it very, very well.
I was very impressed with the city manager's knowledge of this. We've had a lot of
He's
conversations.
on top of it.
Thank you for the education you shared with me.
I
That's-
appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
All right, Commissioners, we have a consent agenda. We've withdrawn one item, D1. Is there a motion to move the consent agenda forward?
Move for approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of ordinance number 4711-19. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from R2 low-density residential district to RP3 planned residential district. Certain property located at 3230 Greenwood Drive is ready for your consideration on first reading. Song?
Yeah, I've got
Vice Mayor
for
needs-
Yes.
the mayor, I'm gonna need to recuse myself because of an existing business relationship with one party to this, and so rather than risk the appearance of a conflict, I will recuse myself.
Thank you. Ms. Song?
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, Commissioners, before you is a request to consider rezoning of 11.65 acre piece of property at the intersection of Willow Springs Drive and Greenwood Drive. This piece of property was annexed into the city in 2003. In 2005, it was zone RP3. So historically, it's been zone RP3. At the time, there was a plan to construct a condominium project on this piece of property that was going to have 175 units. In 2012, a church acquired the property and requested that it be zoned to R2, which would permit the construction of a church as special exception. So the developer is basically requesting that the zone of this piece of property be reverted to the RP3 that it was before 2012. He proposes to construct a 66 lots single-family major subdivision on this piece of property. Adjoining the property is the Willow Springs Reserve subdivision that is currently zoned RP3. So this rezoning will essentially consist in extending that Willow Springs Reserve zoning of RP3 onto this piece of property. The area is generally single-family residential, and as such, what he is proposing will be in line with the general single-family residential character of the neighborhood. This is the concept plan he is proposing for this site. It shows the 66 lots. It has all the requirements of the concept plan. He proposes one street that will connect to Willow Springs Reserve. That will be a local street from the intersection of these two lanes up to Willow Springs Reserve. One of the big issues we had in the rezoning of this property was, especially from the neighborhood, was concern about traffic on Willow Springs Drive. We looked at the construction plans and the as-built plans for this particular subdivision and determined that both in its design and its as-built capacity, it was constructed as a local street. Local streets generally have capacity. They are constructed to handle traffic from 240 to 1,500 trips per day. That's what they're constructed to do. At the Planning Commission meeting, we had used ITE standards to do our analysis. The neighborhood was pretty insistent that those standards may not be very reliable, so we decided to go out and do a traffic count, actually put the meters on the road and do the count since then. And at the Planning Commission, what we had used from ITE was 760 trips a day, but from the actual count on the road is far less than that. It's actually 530 trips per day maximum, which means the road still has a gap capacity of 987 trips that can handle up to 100 dwelling units. The developer is proposing 66 dwelling units, which is well below the capacity that the road can still handle at this time.
Let's back up to that slide, if you would.
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioners, are any questions before we get off of the traffic issues? This is just on, if you're going down Greenwood Drive, this is where you would turn in. So that's Willow Springs Road right there.
Yes.
And what you're saying from the actual traffic count, there were about 513 actual trips on that road, both entering and exiting,
yes.
both,
Yes,
not just one way.
Not just one way.
Okay.
The count, the machine was right here.
And
So
what you're
anybody that went any of the directions
Okay.
went on it. We also made counts at this intersection. That was far less, was about 200 at most. And we also counted on Greenwood Drive. That was about 4,000 something.
Also, you're saying that a local street, a designation of local street, which then has to be a certain width and designed a certain way, has the capacity of about 1,500 trips a day that can handle that. Does that include the intersection then of turning out onto, what is Greenwood Drive? What kind of street is that?
It's a collector street.
Collector street.
So Greenwood Drive, by its speed and its design, should handle higher traffic than Willow Springs. And currently, as I mentioned, from the traffic study we did on Willow Springs, on Greenwood Drive, the traffic there is about 4,700 on Greenwood Drive.
So then you're saying, I'm just trying to track down with this, from how the local street is designed versus how many are actually on it, the 513. when you say capacity gap, that means it could handle 987 more trips and still be okay.
To get, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
To get to its full capacity.
And I guess you're going to get then from the 66 or 67 units that are proposed for that, you're going to tell us how many trips then that will generate?
Yes, ma'am. That will basically generate from the 60, we use 10 trips per day, averagely per household. The real standard ITR is 9.85. So if we just cap it at 10, then there's 66 lots, we give you 660 trips, which is below the 987 trips per day. So there will still be capacity on Willow Springs Drive.
Basically, it would about double the amount of traffic that's on there now, or a little bit more.
Yes, a little bit more.
Okay.
Yes. But we'll still
Wanna
be
make sure I
well within its
understand it.
capacity.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. There were other concerns that came from the neighborhood. One of them was stormwater management. The neighborhood was concerned. As you look at the site, it has a lot of storm drains, wet weather conveyance areas, and there was concern that with all these houses being constructed on this property, all that water is eventually going to end up in the Willow Springs subdivision. That is going to be handled in the subdivision process. The city's regulation is the net flow out of that site has to be zero. Whatever is there now, if only 100 cubic feet of water is leaving that site, post-construction, no more than 100 cubic feet can leave that site. So the developer will be required to detain the water on site, control it for both quantity and quality. No additional water will leave this site than what it is currently. So that will be handled in the subdivision process. I've already talked on the traffic situation, and then there was concern on the size, price points, and building materials, and also the fact that the adjoining subdivision is predominantly retiree community, and what is the developer going to be building here? While there is a concern that we hear often, it is not something that we can use zoning to control. To do that will essentially be using zoning to determine who can live in particular neighborhoods, and that would be illegal for us to do. There was also concern on open space. This being an RP3 zoning district, the zoning ordinance requires that the developer has to have 15% of the entire lot has to be open space. And he has shown that on his concept plan. In this area, this is all going to be open space, and this is also going to be open space. This is a stormwater detention, proposed stormwater detention area. This is all open space. This will be stormwater detention, and this will also be stormwater detention. When he eventually gets into the subdivision design, it's possible that there may be less than 66 lots, because if those stormwater management areas as proposed here are not sufficient, then he will have to lose some lots to detain all the water. There was also concern about sidewalks, whether there will be sidewalks. We require sidewalks on all new streets in the city, so those will be constructed. And a subdivision name, there was concern that the name of the subdivision is going to be the same as that of the Willow Springs subdivision itself, or some other subdivision in the area. That will be determined in the final subdivision plat. That's generally where we have the naming of subdivisions. The Planning Commission at its meeting on October 8, 2019, recommended that you approve the rezoning from R2 to RP3 and approve the concept plan as submitted.
Can you go over on RP3, which would apply to what's currently there in Willow Springs? Preserve, is it? I'm sorry.
Willow Springs, the subdivision.
Oh, okay. What is the, what are the size of the lots, and how much can be built according to that zoning on an acre? Or, just so I have just some concept in my mind.
The RP3 zoning district, all the RP zoning districts, we have RP2, RP3, and RP4. All the RP zoning districts permits lot minimum 40 feet wide, all of them, minimum 40 feet wide. The RP3 minimum lot size is 4,000 square feet. And the permitted density in the RP3 district is 8.5 dwelling units per acre.
So the minimum is 4,000 square feet, but in that zoning, a builder could make the lots 6,000 square
6,000,
feet if
yes,
they
ma'am.
wanted.
Yes, ma'am.
And so what is the density that's allowed then for, what could the builder build in here based on the size of the, and now I know stormwater will have something to do with that, but
8.5, he can have a density of 8.5 dwelling units per acre. And he is proposing with the 66 lots, that will be 5.67 dwelling units per acre.
So it'd be about 90? My notes from that meeting is it could hold up to 90 from just a math standpoint. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes, sir.
But that doesn't allow, I'm sorry, recused.
oh,
I mean, that would be the mathematical possibility.
Maximum.
Yes.
Maximum. If everything, if there was no
If
stormwater.
there was no stormwater, no streets, no open space requirement, nothing, he could go up to that. But with, some of the land he has to build streets, on some of the land he has to construct stormwater, on some of the land he has to have open space, that's going to reduce how many lots he can construct.
So it would be essentially impossible to put 90 on there.
To get up to 90 would be impossible.
Curious, what's the zoning of the development behind and to the left? Is it it's RP3 as well?
You mean for the subdivision?
I see it now. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
it's
Okay.
ROP3.
Yeah. And then go back to the last slide, I think. And I don't know that you can zoom in on it, but in the site plan or whatever,
The concept plan.
concept plan, it's showing, and I don't know the appropriate term, but for the cul-de-sacs, they're dead-end T
The T.
versus a
Yeah, I have-
round cul-de-sac.
the round.
I mean, I've got some personal concerns for that with, functionality for city services to turn around, as well as just the appearance of those kind of T cuts. Is that this concept, right? So that can change, or?
That can change. There is a provision or a stipulation in the subdivision regulations. At this level of concept plan, we're not really applying the subdivision regulations yet, because that would be a different process.
Okay.
There is a stipulation in the subdivision regulations that a developer can use either the T or the roundhead. And to use the T, you'd have to look at things like topography, whether the developer owns the adjoining lot, because the roundhead generally takes more room to get all of that. That will be worked out in the subdivision review process when it turns in the preliminary plan before the planning commission.
the distance between the units, the houses,
In the
in an RP3.
In the RP3, there is no side yard setback. However, per the zoning code, there's no side yard setback. However, the building code requires that all single-family houses, whether in RP3 or any other district, be a minimum 5 feet from the property line. So these houses will have to be 10 feet from each other, irrespective of the zoning district.
And that's the same as the surrounding neighborhood?
As a surrounding,
Right.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there anything in code that says, okay, my lot's gonna be 4,000 square feet and I'm gonna build, how, they can only build a unit that would be, it'd still have to be 5 feet from the property line, so it could fill that space up. What about front and back?
The front yard setback has to be 25 feet for a front-facing garage. If he has a front-facing garage, the front yard setback has to be 25 feet. If there is no front-facing garage, then being on local streets, it's permitted to be 20 feet.
What about the back?
The back in the RP3 zoning district, if the property adjoins another RP3, then there is no rear yard setback. If it doesn't, then it has to meet the setback of that adjoining district. So that's...
Mayor, may I interrupt a second?
Yes, sir.
I think what she really is interested in, what's the maximum lot coverage in RP3?
35%.
Thank you.
35%.
35%.
Is that what you were looking for?
That's exactly what
Okay.
I just didn't know
I
how
knew
to
there was
ask
a-
it.
I thought that's what.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
35%.
But I enjoyed the other numbers too. Those were good numbers.
I like it.
So, okay. So that's the minimum, it has to cover at least.
Maximum.
Maximum, 35%.
So whatever 35% of 4,000 square feet
Okay.
is.
That'll be
is 1,500 square feet, 1,800 square feet, is that right?
On one level.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if you did a 2 or 3 story house or whatever, you got.
Right.
1,500 square feet.
All right, that's helpful. Okay, commissioners, any other questions of Hassan?
Question about the retention pond. The one on the site plan that you show there, the retention pond that's out there now, that's the same one that's in that plan, is that right?
Let me make sure.
Right there.
Yes, it's not really a detention pond right now. It's more like a wet weather conveyance. A lot of water comes in. There are actually 2 of them. You have this, there's another one further down on the other side of the property. It really doesn't hold water and keep it the way you will expect a detention pond to be constructed. It's rather taking all the water coming from this way and channel. There is a culvert right here. And channels it down the road into a detention pond down in this subdivision. So it's really not functioning fully as a detention pond right now.
Just as a point of information, that's the natural topography of that property. That road was built up. If you go to the left side of that road, that topography kind of runs from right to left in that picture. And then on the back side of the houses over there, it kind of turns and runs to the far side of that picture because the creek sits down below it. So that most of the roads in there had to be built up when that subdivision was built 20 years ago, probably.
10 years, no, 10 years ago. You're aging fast. So this area we're talking about right here, that there's no stormwater coming from the current subdivision that's there, that's,
It's just a natural flow.
okay.
You can say it's a
So
natural flow.
in this new project, the developer would have to create a
Detention
to
pond.
standard detention area
Yes, sir.
that then releases the water if it's collected in there.
Any new subdivision can't release any more water off of the property post-development than what is there pre-development immediately. They have to detain it, and it has to, the water detained has to leave that site at the same rate that that water leaves that site pre-development.
And the land use in that area is for residential.
Yes, ma'am.
Other questions?
Let me just say a couple of things. Being on the planning commission, I think ASON has gone over the list pretty well on what the citizens that lived there, what their concerns were, and I think there was a lot of people that spoke with their concerns. And the notes that I had made were concerning stormwater and the traffic flow, controlling affordability and price, which really we can't do. The open space, which was addressed, sidewalks, the name, and while I think the planning commission felt, pretty strongly it'd be nice if it was left open space, that the reason that it was a unanimous vote was that it met the requirements and met the standards. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, commissioners, is there a motion to proceed?
I'll move to approve based on the standards that it meets and the fact that I was there for the planning commission and the research that's done and the response to the concerns.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And we will.
2 more readings.
Yeah, we'll have 2 more readings on this if the vote is in favor of it, of which next week, or 2 weeks from now, we would have public input and y'all can come up and speak. Okay, very good. Anything else? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
I'd move this to second reading with public input, yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Recusal.
And Mayor Brock?
Yes. Thank you, son.
Okay, your next order of business will be a resolution to annex certain property along Christian Church Road known as the Profit Annexation. This is in conjunction with ordinance number 4710-19. A resolution to annex a portion of certain property located within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, adjoining the present corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, said property being known as the Profit Annexation. To zone said property RTP Research Technology Park District as described herein, and to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee accordingly, being a part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, is ready for your consideration on first reading. And I would bring to your attention a letter that I left at your places this evening from the petitioner, pointing out the fact that they had originally requested B4 zoning with this annexation, and the recommendation coming forward from the Planning Commission was RTP. And I think Mr. LaFemin did a really good job of explaining the methodology and the logic behind their request. So, that's all.
Mayor, Commissioners, before you is a request to rezone to annex a 3.008 acres piece of property along Christian Church Road. This property as it is right now, this is basically the lot. It's still to be created. So right now you've got one large piece of property of about 36 acres, and what they intend to do is to cut out that lot 1, 3.008 acres, and request that it be annexed into the city. We've got 3 items on this. There is a request to annex the plan of services and the zoning assignment. Noted on the agenda, these are 3 separate items, and so staff will present them separately. We conducted a fiscal impact analysis on this annexation. It's requested by the property owner. It currently adjoins the city limits, Christian Church Road, right up to its intersection with Boone Station Road is in the city. And the property across the street owned by Mountain State is also in the city. So it adjoins the current city limits, and it's within the city's urban service area and urban growth boundary. As such, it meets the legal requirements for annexation. Water and sewer is currently not available to this property. The water and sewer lines, as you see when I get to the plan of services presentation, ends about 500 feet from the property. The Water and Sewer Department has estimated that extending those lines, it will cost $33,000 to extend water and $98,000 to extend sewer to this piece of property. From the fiscal impact analysis, the net fund will be positive $1,301.63 recurring. Because this annexation meets the requirements for annexing a piece of property into the city, the net fund is positive. The Planning Commission at its meeting on October 8th recommended annexation.
Questions for son?
Move approval.
Second.
This is strictly for the
This is
annexation.
just annexation alone. Okay, any other comments, questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes.
Next item for consideration is ordinance 4710-19. An ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict and amendatory thereof by assigning RTP Research Technology Park District zoning to certain property within the 11th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, known as the Profit Annexation. Ready for your consideration on first reading. This ordinance applies zoning to the property that you just approved for annexation on the first reading.
Mayor, Commissioners, the property owner had requested as part of the annexation application that this piece of property be zoned B4 Planned Arterial Business District. He intends to construct a substance abuse treatment facility on this side, which it will be permitted in the B4 zoning district. The property adjoins an ROTP zoning district that is a lot owned by Mountain State Alliance. On Boones Creek Road, the corridor itself further south, there is the B4 zoning node, at that intersection. Other properties surrounding the area are generally vacant. The Planning Commission had significant discussions at its meeting on October 8 as far as the requested B4 zoning district is concerned, and made a couple of considerations. The first relates to the intent of the B4 zoning district and the ROTP district. The Commission reasoned that it would be poor and inappropriate planning to just simply dish out zoning districts in the city without considering what each of these zoning districts as spelled out in the zoning ordinance are supposed to be used. And the B4 zoning district is essentially used for planned development within certain commercial nodes, unified developments, and the permitted uses have high intensive commercial uses, such as retail, hotels, and others. The ROTP district permits mainly medical uses, such as the substance abuse treatment facility that is proposed and other medical research facilities. The comprehensive plan stipulates that in annexing property, the city should consider, one of the elements the city should consider is the street capacity, the transportation element. Christian Church Road is basically a rural county road, as you see on these pictures. It doesn't have the capacity to sustain the kind of development that one will ordinarily expect in a B4 corridor or a B4 node without improvement of that particular road to either a collector or an arterial road. As the name B4 is, it's a planned arterial business district. So by its very nature in the code, it contemplates the capacity of the street in which the district is supposed to be located. The Planning Commission determined that the road does not have sufficient capacity at this time to handle B4 commercial development. Although at this moment what is proposed is a substance abuse treatment facility, nothing stops the developer at any other point from developing the property for other uses that are permitted in any district to which this is assigned. The ROTP zoning district permits substance abuse treatment facility. As such, zoning this property ROTP is not going to prohibit the applicant from doing the development that he proposes to do in this particular corridor. Lastly, as indicated on this map, the property is proximate to an existing ROTP property. The B4 districts are further away south towards the Boones Creek corridor. The Commission wrestled with the element of the Boones Creek corridor is generally, with the interchange expansion that is going on, it's developing, it's having a general commercial development character at this time. And the Commission wrestled with the question of whether this is a time to go ahead and zone all of those properties, this property and others that may be requested around it B4, or to wait for the private sector, if I can put it that way, You have the request from the private sector. These other properties are eventually requested to come into the city, and you can then create that commercial node. The city at that time will have their incentive with the request from the private sector with the plant developments as they would be to go ahead and possibly improve the road to a collector standard, and then you can have the properties all being zone B4. For example, permit me step back a bit. We had a request at the Planning Commission for, it went to Planning Commission already, and then it fell through, actually from the county, it was coming from the county, to zone this piece of property B3. And the county's B3 is very similar to the city's B4, very, very similar in the permitted uses. The Planning Commission recommended approval of that because there was commitment at the time for the expansion of this street for the making of necessary improvements right up to, as it were planned, the driveway that was going to be coming in from here. So the Planning Commission felt comfortable that they will have the necessary transportation infrastructure in place for that kind of development. And at that time, it recommended approval to the county. The project eventually fell through the cracks.
I'm a little bit confused. In the past, when we've had rezoning requests that would potentially increase the impact where existing road structure wouldn't support it, we've been told to approve it, that the roads will catch up to the use, that the argument, I mean, I've sat on this platform, and I can think of the Denny property, for example, out on Mountain View, when it was being rezoned to allow the apartments, and Mountain View Road wasn't gonna hold the traffic. We were told, and it made sense, zoning is about land use, and traffic is about traffic. And as things build out, and you start to get more traffic count, the road will then have to follow the increased usage. Are you saying different than that now?
It is not, it will not be best planning practice to totally separate land use from transportation. Transportation is needed infrastructure to service the land use. We just dealt with the situation with the rezoning of a piece of property on Greenwood, out there on Greenwood Drive. It's a rezoning, but we had to have the discussion on transportation, whether you have the necessary transportation infrastructure to support or in capacity to support the development that is proposed. So it would not really be sound planning to totally separate the two. In fact, it is often rather put as land use and transportation.
My question is, there's going to be a business on that property, whether it's zone RTP or
Well, they'll probably
B4.
never- Actually, let's be honest, RTP allows about a 50% development of the property. It's a campus-like zone, is it not?
Yes.
Okay, and
Kind of.
so, right, so by contrast, a B4, you still have stormwater and setbacks. But if this is zoned RTP, you'll never have any development on it. It'll be the most expensive development in town because they can only use 50% of what they have, because they've got to have a huge lawn.
My question, Mr. Peterson, to you, now, obviously, and I didn't say anything a minute ago, but, we're kind of creating a little donut hole on this side of the road. I'd certainly like to see if this is going to be a B4 corridor, that, we would like to see this in the city. In your opinion, that's going to develop out there from a business standpoint? Do you see the growth heading up Christian Church Road? And
I can say this, it will not develop as a research triangle park or technology park. You're going to have a rezoning request coming to the Planning Commission real soon for the Ballard property to be rezoned.
which one is that? Where's
It's the
balance?
big piece
The big yellow,
where the
okay.
grading is across from the blue Aqua Square.
But the request change the zoning to B4?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You
I
know,
think,
It's prime for residential and commercial. You'll probably see a bunch of subdivisions out there one of these days up on, towards Crest of the Hill.
but it is a county road, right? So,
It's both. Part of it's in, part of it's out.
so you pave that in, we'll pave this in?
The entire road
Or
is
how
in the
about y'all
city.
just pave the whole thing?
The entire road is in the city right up to this point, and then from this point upward is a county, it's in the county.
The remainder of that parcel, so only the 3 acres, and there's one project now, there may be other projects for 3.
One that's being considered.
Okay,
But they
okay.
also need B4 zoning.
Okay.
RTP, it will not.
Okay. So the rest of that acreage there, you're kind of carving out just 3 acres of it. It's county. What's it zoned? Is that the B3?
A1 is agricultural right
Okay, so it's still agricultural.
Incrementally, it'll just keep coming up for annexation into the city.
And County A1 allows an awful lot of uses that are even less appealing. I mean, you could have a truck stop in a County A1.
You know, I kind of tend to agree with Vice Mayor Wise as far as the traffic and the zone planning. We're talking about a 3-acre plot where, you know, if in B4 and RTP both permit the same uses, basically. And you're looking at hotel, motel, retail shops, liquor stores, pharmacies, vehicle sales, car lots. All of those have different traffic patterns and quantities of ins and outs and whatnot. If we were looking at what you referenced earlier, a much larger swath of land to zone B4, you know, I think the impact to the road would, I'd agree with you probably 100%. You know, we would need to look more readily at, you know, the needs of upgrading the roads, but I don't know that that necessarily applies, at least from the way I'm looking at it, to a 3-acre tract of land.
Did we have to have neighborhood meetings on the annexation?
No, ma'am.
Okay, on the.
In some cases, if we have a case on the planning commission agenda now where the planning commission has asked the developer to have a discussion with the neighborhood.
So nobody
if it's
came
kind
to the
of
planning
contentious.
commission to speak
But
about this?
It's not required.
It's not required?
It's not required.
Commissioners, is there a motion?
Well, let me just say, you know, from the planning commission side on this, and full disclosure, I was in the minority on the vote for the zoning to RTP. I was in favor of the B4. I think, I wouldn't speak for my fellow planning commissioners, but I think that the concern wasn't B4 as much as that they wanted it to be the whole piece of property, which is, that's not the request. And I think that was the main issue. I mean, I would like to make a motion then, if we're ready for a motion, that it be rezoned B4. Rezoned
Second
B4.
that, too.
Motion and a second. Is any other discussion? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. Hassan, thank you very much. I know y'all are, you know, putting a lot into making these recommendations. I think, you know, with Christian Church Road, in all likelihood, it's going to be developed commercial there, and certainly if we're going to get something else across the street there, the thing we need to be thinking about is the road now. So, okay. Thank you very much. Next.
Next order of business is consideration of a plan of services for the profit annexation. In your packet is the outline of the plan of services. As is usual with the plan of services, once the annexation becomes effective, police, fire, water, sewer, electric, everything will be available to the property. This property does require the extension of water and sewer services. Those would not be made until development's ready to occur.
Okay.
I would make a motion to approve the plan of service.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other questions?
Ma'am,
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
we may, with the vote for the B4, because one thing in the plan of services is the zoning district that's mentioned in the plan of services. So under K in your plan of services package, we would need to specify that's amended to
we need to
specify
make
that
a
is being.
motion.
I would
Switch
modify
it.
I'd modify my motion.
To
Sorry,
include
not
it
my-
before?
To reference the P4, yes.
But it materially doesn't change the plan of services.
No.
No,
Does not.
it doesn't.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
My second again, the change in the motion.
You want to restate that, Larry?
Could you help me restate?
It was
I made-
actually
I think I made the
You made it, I'm
motion.
sorry.
Right,
Okay.
it was to approve the plan of service, modifying it to reflect the B4 zone.
Second, his modification of his first.
Very good. Any other questions, comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next is ordinance number 4713-19, an ordinance to abandon an alley extending northeast from the 200 block of North Broadway Street on the terms and conditions contained herein and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith is ready for your consideration. Song?
Mayor, Commissioners, before you is a request to abandon the public's right-of-way in an alley between 218 North Broadway and 222 North Broadway. All the departments, water and sewer, fire, public works, joining property owners, the Heaven of Mercy that owns both the 218 property and the 222 property, or they own property on both sides, basically, is requesting this for construction of a thrift store on the bottom, will be a story building, thrift store at the bottom, and apartments, 20 units at the top. There are no utilities that would hinder the abandonment of this right-of-way. The Planning Commission at its meeting on October 8 recommended that the public right-of-way on this alley be abandoned.
Commissioners?
Move for approval. Second.
Any other comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next is ordinance number 4712-19, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled an ordinance to adopt a code of laws and ordinances for the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by changing from I-2 Heavy Industrial District and R-5 High Density Residential District to B4 Planned Arterial Business District, certain properties located at 218 and 222 North Broadway Street, is ready for your consideration on first reading.
Mayor, Commissioners, before you is a request to rezone two pieces of properties, 218 and 222 North Broadway, the same properties owned by Heaven of Mercy that you just approved on first reading, the abandonment of an alley in between. The property is right at the intersection of East Millard Street and North Broadway. The future land use map designates this property for residential development. It's currently zone I2. The two lots are currently zone I2 for heavy industrial, right here. And the R5 that you have in the ordinance, basically the section of that alley and part of the road. It's best practice to have, when you have different zoning districts, let the line, the zoning line come up to the center of the road. So that's basically the area that is proposed to be rezoned from R5 to B4. This property, to the north of these two lots, it's all B4 property. It's all commercial. It has got gas stations, retail stores. I think there's Walgreens right at that intersection. So this rezoning will essentially consist in extending this B4 district southward. It will fit the character of the area. As shown here is essentially a commercial corridor in this particular area. The residential district will remain at the back of the property. And the B4 district will provide a kind of a transitional zone between the I-1 and the residential district across the road. A concept plan is required for this rezoning. The developer has submitted a concept plan which meets all the zoning ordinance requirements. It will be a 14,000 square feet building, 2 stories, thrift stall at the bottom, 20 units apartment on the top. The B4 zoning district only permits residential in the upper floors. And the building itself will be located outside of the floodplain in this area, which is environmentally sound. The Planning Commission at its meeting on October 8 recommended that you approve the rezoning from I1 and R5 to B4 and the concept plan as submitted.
Was there a community meeting on this one?
It required. Nobody showed up. And
Move
we
for
sent
approval.
out the notices.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next is an ordinance to revise Title V, Chapter 3 of your hotel motel transient occupancy privilege tax. Ordinance 4715-19, an ordinance to amend Title V, Municipal Finance and Taxation, Chapter 3, Hotel Motel Transient Occupancy Privilege Tax of the Municipal Code of the City of Johnson City. This, in summary, will allow you to apply the requirement to pay hotel motel taxes on short-term rentals. Mr. Manley.
Well said, thank you.
And if you would just really kind of go through how you've integrated it into the current
Absolutely.
ordinance, I think that's probably what we
Yeah, so-
went through it in detail before.
We went over the background on this item at our previous meeting. We landed on this taxation item as something that could quickly be addressed, and so staff is proposing that we add some additional language to Chapter 13. No, that's not right. Sorry. Title V, Chapter 3, and that would just create a level playing field between hotels and short-term rentals. And once that is done, we will contact Airbnb and the other providers and have them add that tax. I have a little screenshot here of what languages pops up in other places if they have that tax in place. And so you can see here that occupancy tax was included, and so that was added onto the fee. Specifically, the ordinance adds a definition for short-term rental. It is a residential dwelling unit that is used and/or advertised for transient occupancy. The residence can be owner-occupied on a lot with an owner-occupied residence or not owner-occupied. A rental that lasts between 1 and 89 days is considered short-term. This is just the definition for this hotel tax portion. It may be different when we get to the land use portion of this. And then taking this definition, we then insert short-term rental elsewhere in this hotel tax chapter. And so those references are laid out here. Basically, it's making sure that we have clarification that that 7% tax is going to be remitted to the city, to the city treasurer, that they would add it to the invoice at the time of checking out, and that they cannot advertise that it would be absorbed into the cost outright. So it's really straightforward, just adding that definition, just to remove any question and make sure we have a level playing field when it comes to taxes between hotels and short-term rentals in Johnson City. So staff is recommending approval. This is first reading, and then I have a couple of other items to follow up from our previous discussion, just to answer some of your questions.
Do we have any idea what amount that might be with the Airbnbs and the VRBOs and things we have in our area?
Based on a rough estimation, it was somewhere around $15,000 to $20,000 annually that we would add.
So far.
Yeah.
Mr. Manley, I want to thank you for putting this together. I think this is important because I think we're going to see a growth in this sort of arrangement. And we have a lot of hoteliers in Johnson City that have invested many millions of dollars in facilities intended for short-term occupancy that shouldn't be penalized because they're following the laws relative to the occupancy tax. So I would make a motion, we approve it.
Second that.
Any other questions?
I do have a question. What, in the realm of a level playing field, and mentioned by Vice Mayor of the cost to develop a hotel versus renting a piece of your existing house, residential house, is there a way to increase this tax or have a different tax associated? I was just
Not
curious.
without an act of the General Assembly.
Gotcha.
They won't.
Have to do it, then they won't.
That's a big lift. I don't think we'd have much success there.
Yeah, I
A
was just
lot of
curious.
lobbying power on the
Yeah.
other side, well, on both sides, but.
Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun?
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise?
Yes.
Mayor Brock?
Yes. Thank you, Matt.
Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time, but there was a question about a comparison in the Tri-Cities,
Yeah.
and so I did an analysis and looked at the numbers for Bristol and Kingsport using a similar analysis that I did for Johnson City. The numbers actually went up for Johnson City. I was surprised to find out that if you put in a request for multiple days, actually got more results. I was thinking one night there'd be more availability for one night, but that was not the case. And so the numbers for Johnson City actually went up. It was around 34 is what I presented last time. So we're looking at, maybe, mid-40s there. But Bristol actually has more than anyone else. And I think that makes sense with the number of events and the races and whatnot. And Kingsport
Say more
was-
days, you don't mean available days, you mean a guest looking to rent for more than one night?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, and so that made the numbers go up. So this is the comparison there, using multiple provider sites. We looked at this last time, the comparison with other cities in our region, and then I discussed this MTAS survey. We got the results back for that. That was shared with you in your packet. If you have any questions about that, please let me know. I think there is some interesting things here. We can kind of get a feel for what other cities have done. I don't want to be too critical, but some of the way the questions were asked were not exactly what we were looking for. For instance, the limit on number of days for a stay, that should have been limit on the number of days per year that you could rent your unit out. And so we didn't get direct responses on that. It was more just that 30-day, which is a typical definition of how you define a short-term rental versus a long-term rental. But overall, I think there is some good information here, and it may give us some confidence and understanding about where we stand in moving forward with an ordinance here. There was a number of cities that had no ordinance. You can see there at the bottom. So there's any questions about the results of that survey? Also looked at some of the major metropolitan areas and kind of just wanted to see what is going on elsewhere in the nation. There's a lot of news happening around Airbnb and short-term rentals, and so there's a lot of stuff happening, and it's very interesting. But there are very strict regulations in larger cities, and so that's just a little bit of a comparison. Also, wanted to answer the question about does creating a local ordinance reduce the number? Can it impact the number of short-term rentals? I think Commissioner Calhoun, you had asked that question, and I found some evidence of that. Yes, that it drastically reduced or cut in half the number in San Francisco when they passed their ordinance, and then Denver was seeing very similar results. And I think that is the intent of some of these ordinances in certain cities, and so I think that is affirmative. Commissioner Hunter, you had asked about can we create a protocol for enforcement, and I think yes, you can to a degree. There are certain things that we just will not have access to, or if we wanted access to, would be very cumbersome and would possibly either require additional staff or hiring outside entities or agencies that would try to pull that data for us. In particular, location data is not readily available. And so it would take on-the-ground work, comparison of maps that are provided which don't give exact locations, and then matching that with photos that are provided, and then trying to pin down a property. So you'd be doing that on a regular basis, trying to keep up with everything. So, and then, you know, the number of nights that information is not available. So as you get into more, more regulation can be more difficult to enforce, which seems logical. I found some really great resources that kind of give this third-party information that's, I think, affirming some of what I was sharing with you last time. You know, it lays out what are some of the issues, what are cities facing, why are they even talking about creating ordinances, or why have they created ordinances? And this lays out a number of reasons here. Number 6, we're addressing right now, but issues with public safety and disrupting neighborhoods, that type of thing. And so that's why we would be looking at this. What we want to find out is how much are those issues widespread throughout the city as it is. And so the planning staff really would like to reach out and try to get some feedback from our residents on this and see what is the impact of this currently in our city to help guide how we put or draft our ordinance moving forward. So that information combined with setting some clear goals, understanding who we are as a city, and then establishing goals for how we want to move forward as a city, how we want to protect our character as a city. And so I think it's really important to identify those goals and then create an ordinance that matches those goals to get the results that we want. There are a couple of examples here where they've laid out, you know, just as a hypothetical, the objectives that would fall if you were a certain type of city or area. So they have a working class suburban community with ample housing availability and a struggling downtown. So if that was the scenario, then they give these objectives. These might be the types of objectives you would lay out given those circumstances. In comparison, you have, if you were a beach town with a large stock of traditional vacation rentals, how would you tailor your ordinance if that was the case? And so I think looking at what Johnson City is and understanding the current situation and the impact it's having on residents, we can put all that together and put together a really strong ordinance that looks at our enforcement strategies and takes a reasonable approach to this that's to the benefit of our citizens.
Thank you. Any other questions for the thoroughness? And we'll get through the next 2 readings on this and probably have more questions at that time, but
Absolutely.
thank you so
Are
much.
you all okay with the survey, reaching out and maybe doing some engagement with the community?
Absolutely.
Well, let's revisit. Could we talk a little more at an agenda review and get into exactly what that would look like?
I think that's a good
I've got a
format to do it.
draft already,
Yep.
totally editable, you know.
Right, I think it would be helpful for us just to know, because sometimes asking a question is almost a way to suggest something is happening that may
Completely
not be,
agree.
or create an expectation that would be misplaced.
I agree. I think it needs to be very well thought out. I agree. Thank you.
Mr. Peterson, if you're okay and the rest of the commission's okay, I'd like to move on second reading the C up next. We have people here who've been waiting quite a while.
Do we not need to vote? Do
We did vote.
Okay. Okay. That's right, that's right. That was that.
Are y'all okay with that? I mean, we have people here
That's
who have come, and if you want to introduce it again, it is going to be a short version tonight, and then it's public input.
This is in ordinance number 4708-19, an ordinance to revise, update, and add new sections to the code of the city of Johnson City regarding animal control by amending Title 10 of the Code of the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and repealing all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. The ordinance impacts 3 major areas: registration, restraint, and spay-neuter. That's the areas that we feel has been weak. There's been a considerable amount of time spent on this ordinance, and I've got Tammy Davis here. She is the shelter director, and I've asked her to come and just briefly expound on these areas a little bit, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have.
Make it very
Amy?
short and sweet.
All right.
So the first section has to do with registration. Currently, there is a ordinance in the city that requires that every animal be registered. Most people are not aware of that and do not comply with that. The new registration would basically say that owners of dogs would pay a minimal fee to register their dog in the city. We're looking at, the fee has not been yet determined. We're looking at possibly $8 or $10. And that would be renewed either yearly or in a 3-year period, depending on, we're going to coincide it with the vaccinations that the animal requires with the veterinarian. The next section would be on restraints. A couple of things there. The first thing we would like to see is have an ordinance that would require dogs in the back of a truck bed on a city road to have some kind of 3-prong restraint so that they cannot be thrown out or jump out or fall out of the back of a pickup truck. If you're on your private property, you have a dog on a farm, of course, this ordinance would not apply to that, but it's basically to help the safety of the dog. The next part of the restraint would be, we would like to see Johnson City become a chain-free city. This would take a 2-year process. The first year, we ask that no dog can be chained for more than 12 hours at a time. And then that would be all through 2020. And then beginning in January of 2021, we would ask that no dog would be left outside chained unless it's under immediate supervision of its owner.
But immediately, though, Ms. Davis, they couldn't be chained to a fixed post.
Correct. You would go to like a trolley system, yes, to make it a little bit better. It's a step up from chaining, so. The next ordinance deals with spay-neuter. We would like to implement a spay-neuter ordinance in the city, which would basically help, hopefully, cut down on the number of unwanted puppies and kittens that are born in the city currently, animals that are overbred, puppies and kittens that have nowhere to go, that are unhealthy. The other part of that would be there are going to be some animals that may qualify for an unaltered permit. So obviously, if there's restrictions or animals that could have exemptions, then those would apply. And also, if someone would like to breed their animal, they can apply for a dealer permit and then just be registered as that and have to pay taxes and such. The next section, also under the restraints, is currently the ordinance does not give a very good description of what a shelter should be. It says if an animal has food and water and a shelter, that is sufficient. So our new ordinance basically just gives a better description of what a shelter should be, that it should be dry, provide protection from inclement weather, from the sun, and have adequate room for the animal to move around, separate area for drinking and eating, and a separate area for waste. So just a happy, healthier animal. And then I believe that is most of the main parts of what we're asking.
This is public hearing, so we may bring you back up if we have other questions here in just a minute, but I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak for or against the ordinance? And if there is, if you would come forward, say your name and address, please, and we limit the input to 3 minutes. And if someone has kind of made a point, we ask you to kind of bring other points to that. So if there's anyone here who would like to speak for or against, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Liza Conway. My address is 836 State Street, Bristol, Tennessee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am the founder of Chain Free Bristol, and between Chain Free Bristol, Chain Free Dogs, and Chain Free Greenville, these three organizations have released approximately 400 dogs from their permanent restraints. I and many others served on the task force that updated the code of ordinances that pertain to the dogs, the ordinance that before you today. I want you to know that following the lead of Johnson City, hopefully, an ordinance has passed the first of 2 readings for limited chaining with the goal of no chaining in the city of Bristol, Tennessee. As an advocate for dogs in our region for the past 12 years, I would like to thank the Commission for setting the tone and taking the lead in positive animal welfare. As I've said for years, stronger animal welfare ordinances will improve our region in respect to its public image, public safety, positive animal welfare, and it also shows a responsible use of tax dollars. Thank you for your time.
I think I understand another county and another city may have gotten our ordinance and are considering it as well, so.
I've had several
Certainly.
officials reach out and ask for copies of our
Okay.
ordinances.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak for or against? Okay. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing.
Move approval.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other comment? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun,
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler,
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter,
Yes.
and Mayor Brock.
Yes. So thank y'all for coming tonight. I know that y'all have been sitting here a long time. We got it through. I want to acknowledge Dr. McLean, who is our veterinarian, who's on the Animal Control Board. And I know particularly on these restraint pieces, you see the dogs that fall out of the trucks. I mean, you deal with them on an ongoing basis. Some of you may have kept up with what's going on at the shelter just this week alone, that we've taken in 148
140 animals in 6 days, and then we took in 7 more cruelty cases today.
and 2 of the big cases are cruelty cases that you just don't want to see that. So anyway, it's something all the time. So thank y'all so much, and thanks for their other animal control office board members here. Thank y'all for coming tonight and for working on this ordinance. We'll have one more reading in 2 weeks on the 21st. Thank y'all. Okay.
Your next ordinance is 4686-19, an ordinance to amend the municipal code of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, specifically Title 15 motor vehicles, traffic and parking related to shared mobility. Ready for your consideration on second reading.
Yes. It should be. Proceed.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Vice Mayor and
A little
Commission.
bit of warning, Mr. Mayor. You're in charge.
Uh, Here, with this particular item, we're just continuing that conversation about the sharing economy. We had the conversation about Airbnb and short-term rentals. This is the side of the sharing economy that is shared mobility, bicycles, scooters, things like that. You may recall, it's been some time now, really since the first of the summer, that we brought you first reading on a proposed scooter and bicycle sharing program. And since then, we have taken this summer, really, and the opportunity to dig further and gather additional evidence and data on what other cities are doing. In particular, you may recall that back in May, the mayor of Nashville had indicated that they were going to ban scooters because of safety concerns. And so over the summer, the Nashville City Council continued to have conversations about this, and in the end, they convened in August and decided that they were going to scrap their ordinance, start over, and basically start from scratch. But they did not ban scooters. So as we've developed changes to this ordinance and revisions before second reading, as you know, we've had conversation, and I think the recommendation at this point, based on safety concerns, is that we will withhold from introducing scooter sharing in our community, and we would like to focus on our bicycles. There's been a tremendous amount of investment by you all in the bicycle arena in terms of trails and bike paths and bike lanes, et cetera. cetera, et cetera. We want to support that. So this ordinance is revised between first and second reading to remove scooter sharing, but to support and allow bicycle sharing. Now, what this does not do is this does not prohibit a private citizen from owning their own scooter, just would not allow for a company that has docked or dockless scooters from operating in our community. Now, this doesn't shut down the conversation in its entirety. We believe that in the future, as we learn more about how the scooter companies are addressing these safety concerns, we may be able to have this conversation again. We think that with the reconstruction of West Walnut Street from University to Buffalo into a multimodal avenue, we think that that's going to be part of the conversation in the future, in the very near future. And so we would like to revisit this again, but for now, we want to focus on bicycles and what they can do for us. We have contacted ETSU as you requested because we knew that ETSU was going to follow suit and work with us on whatever ordinance was brought forward. Indication has been that they will probably follow suit. They would support bicycles at this time, but probably not support scooters. Well, ultimately, that's their decision, but I think we all want to move together as a group. And so what we bring to you here on second reading is a revised ordinance, but one that we think protects our citizens, but also continues to support the sharing economy.
Commissioners?
Is there to be public hearing on this or the next second reading?
There is not one required.
Okay.
You may certainly hold one. if
Okay,
you
well, no,
choose.
I just
Yes, sir.
was noting, thank you.
Right. This is an amendment to the municipal code. This is not an amendment to the zoning ordinance. But again, you can certainly do that if you'd like.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Just a comment. I think, as y'all know, I mentioned in the agenda meeting that I'd been contacted by a company that represents scooters, and I informed them of what was potentially going to happen this evening, and I think Mr. Mitchell said it very well, that this doesn't close the conversation, because the gentleman sent me some information about how other cities are handling scooters in a very positive way, but we're not, I informed him that I think Johnson City's ready just to hold off for right now, but we're not shutting the door on this completely, because I think it has some potential for down the road, especially when we get the Walnut Street corridor plans open. There's some opportunities, I think, there that would be very beneficial for transportation, but I'm in support of this change, but I don't think it ends the conversation.
Is that a motion?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Any other remarks, comments? Okay, Ms. Jennings.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next item of business is ordinance number 4707-19, an ordinance to prescribe the maximum expenditure which the city manager may make without specific authorization of the Board of Commissioners in accordance with section 45.8 of the Charter of the City of Johnson City, and to repeal all ordinances and parts of ordinances in conflict herewith. Ready for your consideration on second reading.
Move for approval. Second.
Any other comments?
I guess I would just say this is one of those things where we aren't changing the fact that the spending is required to go through the customary bid process. What we're essentially doing is recognizing that things come up, particularly equipment may be out of commission, and the repair is $35,000. Under the old model, without this change, it would sit for 3 weeks idled, waiting to come to the commission. And so really, as I see this, there's still transparency. We're going to see it in the regular report.
Yes, sir.
It's just a matter of making sure we aren't idling equipment for weeks at a time, because the cost to repair it is $26,000 as opposed to $24,000. And we're going to do it anyway because it's a $500,000 piece of equipment.
Yes, sir.
So-
With all the same bidding requirements are in place, and, yes, sir.
And this is more in line with cities of our size, throughout the state of Tennessee. A great deal of work was done to make this recommendation. We appreciate that. Okay, Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Next order of business is consideration of a resolution to annex certain property located within the 10th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, adjoining the present corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to incorporate the same within the corporate boundaries of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, said property being known as the Hawk Landing annexation. Zone said property R2 low-density residential as described herein, and to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee accordingly, being a part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Mayor, Commissioners, this has been before you for first reading and second reading. I think the second reading was in May of this year. And after that, the applicant requested that we put it on hold. So this is just coming back to finish the process. Nothing has changed on the annexation request. Everything stays the same as it were. He intends to construct a 6-lot single-family subdivision at the end of this Municipal Hills Drive. The recommendation from the Planning Commission to annex this into the city is the same.
Move approval.
Second.
This is where he moved that house, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, any other comments? Ms. Jennings?
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
Ordinance number 4693-19, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Johnson City, Tennessee, being part of the appendix to ordinance number 1519, entitled An Ordinance to Adopt a Code of Laws and Ordinances for the City of Johnson City, Tennessee, and to repeal all laws and ordinances in conflict therewith, and amendatory thereof by assigning a R2 low-density residential zone to certain property within the 10th Civil District of Washington County, Tennessee, known as the Hawk Landing annexation, ready for your consideration on third and final reading.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. I think we've got this one. Any other comments?
Unless you wanted,
Ms.
we've heard
Jennings.
it.
It fits
got
with
it.
all the other houses are R2
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah.
Commissioner Calhoun.
Yes.
Commissioner Fowler.
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wise.
Yes.
Mayor Brock.
Yes.
At this time, we will have our public input, and we have a request from Ms. Barbara Mays to discuss her concerns with noise ordinance.
Ms. Mays, I'm sorry you've had to wait so long, but come forward. Stretch your legs a little bit.
Thank you.
And if you would mind, just state your name again and your address.
It's Barbara Mays, and I live at 1207 Glen Ridge Avenue in Johnson City. And I think I sent each one of you an email about what kind of is going on, so you'll kind of be prepared for what I'm about to talk about. But the reason I'm here tonight is to try to get the noise ordinance right now revised, because we're having such a problem with, it's not music, you can't call it music, it's a bass sound. And, I know it's all over Johnson City, it's not in our area. If you go out traveling, you stop at a red light, you're gonna hear this. It might be the car next to you, it might be 3 cars down. But in our neighborhoods where it's getting worse, or, it's got to the point it's affecting people's health. It's causing blood pressure issues, anxiety, mental emotions and things. And so what I'm trying to get done, the police's hands are tied right now. I mean, they have, do as much as they can, but right now it stands with the noise ordinance that's in place. People has to 10 or 11 o'clock at night to play this music that they, if you call it music, that they can play. To a decimal sound has to go up. They only have 2 meters right now to measure this, from my understanding. They have to measure, come out and measure it when it's quiet in your neighborhood. Then they have to catch the people when they're playing this music again to see how loud it is. And they're just, the way it is right now, this was wrote in 2013, the noise ordinance. And for right now, that's 6 years ago, it's not working. It's getting worse. People are taking building boom boxes and putting it in their trunks of their cars. This is not speakers that came in a car. It's not made for that. I love to hear music too, but I keep mine at a level where it's from only me. I don't want to make you listen to something, that I'm listening to. And that right now is where people's at. They're forced to listen to this bass sound, whether you're in a car. My husband and I were 2 weeks ago at Harbor House eating supper, and we were sitting with the music in the restaurant, people having conversations. We heard a car pull up in the parking lot with this bass going so loud that it drowned it out, the conversation in the restaurant. And so what I'm trying to get done is to maybe have this changed to where it's not 10, 11 o'clock at night. Children's not sitting up that late, people working, elderly people, we don't do that. And if you are sitting up, you can't rest this has rattled our windows in our home. You can't listen to the TV. It's just so nerve-wracking. You'd have to be in a situation to fully understand what I'm trying to say. And we're talking about people in neighborhoods got heart problems, diabetes and things, a lot of medical issues. And the landlords, sometimes they're able to stop a lot of this and help some. But then, like I say, if that person moves out and another moves in, it's just putting a Band-Aid on a big cut. It's going to bleed through. So that's why I'm here tonight, is just to hope and pray that maybe you all will revise this ordinance to where, it will maybe get rid of the bass, just the bass sound, maybe the speakers that's in the car that people's putting in them, and you just can't rest, to where we can have some peace in our senior years, be able to enjoy what life we've got left, And
So this has moved into your neighborhood, and so you have some neighbors that are playing this music past 11 o'clock.
Yeah, well, yes, ma'am. How it started was really about 3.5 weeks. We've had it going on for 4 years. Like I said, one will start, one will stop. You get it started, stop, somebody else will start. But this here recently was one, he had put these big speakers in his car, and he was really out in his car. And we live about 2 houses down across the street. And another neighbor lady lives 4 houses down on another street, and it was rattling her windows. And he just plays it till the trunk lid's vibrating, And now, since we did get the landlord to speak to him, he's got now to it's coming in and going out to work. Like he woke us up at 6 a.m. this morning with the bass sound, it's boom, 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 boom. In the afternoon, it's boom, 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 boom. And I'm not going to say music because it's not music, And so that's, what I'm trying to get done. I'm not very good at this.
You have done a great job. I just want to tell you how well you have done, how organized your thoughts are, and that you've presented to us, because, we really can understand what you're talking about. Plus, your letter helped a whole lot, too, that gave us a baseline there. So we don't normally respond when people come for input, but I would say, Mr. Peterson, at least, I don't know if the equipment that our officers have is sufficient to enforcing our current noise ordinance, but if we could just have you look into this for us and come back with
I would be glad
report.
to. I have experienced this in my neighborhood.
Yeah, as have I, and I know what you're talking about. I mean, you feel it, and you
feel so helpless.
Right.
You just
And
get where you feel so
it does
helpless.
It does rattle your windows.
I know it.
So.
I know it does.
And I did talk to Chief Tunnel, and he did say that they only right now have 2 meters. And the way they have to read them, it's near impossible. And really, the police officers' hands, people knows that about this law, and their hands are tied because there's, not a lot they can do right now.
I'm sure there's some better meters that we can get nowadays, but it sounds like to me that you've gotten some support, that we will dig into this and see what we can do.
I thank you so very much.
We'll
Anything-
examine the 2013 ordinance for sure.
That'd be a good thing to look at, just
Thank
take a look at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our key into it, but
I would
anyway.
very much appreciate that. and
Well, thank
God
you
bless
so
you.
much. Thank you very much for coming, you and your husband. I hope
Thank
you've
you.
enjoyed the rest of the meeting. Maybe, maybe not. Thank you. All right. So you got a little direction on that? You'll start digging into it?
I know exactly where she's coming from. I've lived with it, and I'll do my very best to see if we can't make some adjustments
I can't
somewhere.
identify where it's coming from, which kind of drives me a little bit crazy, because I can hear it. I
Yes.
don't know where it's coming from.
Yes.
All right, is that it?
That takes us to the conclusion of our scheduled agenda.
Okay. Commissioners, any last comments? Mr. Calhoun? Commissioner Calhoun? Yeah, you're last.
Thank you for approving the street closure. I can go home tonight. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
No, nothing else.
that's it? Very good. Commissioner Hunter?
Nothing from me.
Science Hill High School football against Maryville at Maryville tomorrow night. Kickoff is 7 o'clock instead of 7:30, and the temperature will be 33 at kickoff and going down. So
This is
pray for me
third-
outside.
This is for third place?
This is the first round of the state playoffs. So this is,
Yeah. Vice Mayor?
everybody ride with me.
Two things, I guess. Saturday has been mentioned earlier, the Veterans Parade, and then there will be a ceremony at the Veterans Memorial on Monday at 11, near the VA there at Market, and
Veterans Way.
Are you gonna be able to go to that?
I will be.
Very good. I will be out of town.
So those are both coming up this weekend.
Very good. Anybody go to Freedom Hall last night or
I
for the
did.
girls' game?
The girls' game the night before and.
I understand the
boys'
girls' game was almost sold out, or if not
It was
sold out.
5,500 people were there. It was a
Wow.
great atmosphere for
Yeah.
girls' basketball.
That should make us
So,
feel good about ETSU
Yeah.
girls' basketball this year.
There were a lot of orange people in the gym, but yes.
Okay, very good. Well, the month of November and early December is going to be a really, really busy month. So we have, at our next meeting, we will be pardoning the turkey. So be prepared and ready for that. We have the turkey trot coming up. We're about 40% ahead on registrations this year, so it's going to be big ahead, where we were last year. So be ready for another.
It's going to be warm that day, beautiful
hope
blue
so.
skies.
I hope so. I hope so. And then, of course, that weekend will be the Johnson City birthday party, and with Sunday afternoon being the burial of the time capsule and dedication of the history circle, which we're real excited about that. But before that is the ribbon cutting for the Langston Center. And
17th,
so
Sunday the
that's-
17th.
That's right. And there's a kind of a pre-opening on the 16th that the lead group
The
is
donors,
hosting a reception. If you can get to that. And so that's the one where the dress is dress, right?
Yeah, I think that was an invitation.
Right. And then, of course, we go right into the city Christmas tree lighting with the Clydesdales being here on the Christmas parade. I have seen a quick preview of the float that Parks and Rec has built. It will put the final touch on the sesquicentennial, I can tell you that. It is amazing what they have done. I have.
Do we have to sing the 12 Days of Christmas
No,
again?
no, you just might do some choo-choo. So anyway, it's good, and we'll have
That's what they said about the 12 Days of
costumes.
Christmas.
So, anyway, that's all good. So, anything else, Janet?
May I add
Anything
one
on your
thing?
part? Yes, sir.
You have a member amongst you who has lost absolutely none of his athletic ability, as I witnessed a spectacular catch on the sideline by Commissioner Fowler during the DB Science Hill ball game on a slightly overthrown pass. It was very quick, brought the ball down. It was beautiful. I could
to get
tell
it
from
back
the
on
other
the field.
side who it was. Good job, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay, if nothing else, meeting adjourned.